Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, he lost their entire $1 million retirement fund, some of it on women.
Women he met online, but never in person.
This is April. April and I are engaged. This lady is Jane. Her and her daughter are now being held in captivity. This is Sophie Preston. Sophie is mute, and she was in an auto accident.
She's a fashion designer.
She is. She's a very good one.
If she's a really good fashion designer, why is she homeless?
Fool for love?
Her attorney,
Her so-called attorney.
he robbed her.
Yes, and he'd been robbing her before, apparently, too.
I hate it when that happens.
Or just plain fool?
Show me a document that's not fraudulent.
Well, I don't have it on me.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I want to be right.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life. You've never had anybody working harder to bring you to the threshold of change than right now. Well, Robert and Jeremy got married in their 20s after meeting on a ski trip. Now, Jeremy supported her husband's career as a college professor with a PhD in meteorology and even got her master's degree also in meteorology, and they published some papers together. Both say they were best friends, loved traveling in their RV, and really just sharing their life together. But after 40 years of marriage, Jeremy walked out on Robert. She says she was blindsided after discovering he lost their entire $1 million retirement fund.
I believe my ex-husband, Bob, has lost his mind. When we retired, he began to get involved in the day trading. It was pretty much an obsession, 18 hours a day.
I lost a lot of money, didn't tell my wife about it. I thought I could make up for my losses.
Things were spiraling out of control. I went to charge something on a credit card, and the credit card was maxed out.
I had to tell her we lost everything.
We were broke. Our $1 million nest egg was gone. Bob became obsessed with making back that money. He would go online and find these women, and they would say they had a lot of money, but they couldn't get at it. And if he would just give them a little bit of money, then he would benefit with the larger amount of money once they got the money free.
Women ask for money for food, or they need medicine, or their mother needs medicine.
Basically, Bob was being scammed. I don't believe he had any idea of what was going on, and nobody could tell him different.
I probably lost in total about $50,000 to $75,000. I mean, when I say lost, it means I never met the women yet, and the money's gone.
After 40 years of marriage, I filed for divorce.
Since the divorce, I'm probably online 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. What I'm looking for is a woman that I could have a long-term relationship with, in fact, a marriage relationship with.
Robert needs help. In his mind, he's going to find a beautiful young woman, wealthy, who's going to share her fortune with him. They're going to ride off into the sunset, and maybe he'll send me something. He's just crazy.
Now Robert says he has not one, but a pool of several women who he texts several hours a day. He says he hopes one relationship will lead to marriage.
At this point, there's approximately a half dozen women that I have a strong interest in. This is Sophie Preston. I met her online about 2 years ago, and I've been talking to her ever since. Sophie lives in the Modesto area in California. Her father was Nigerian, her mother was American. She's a U.S. citizen, but she grew up in the United Kingdom, and she's a fashion designer. She could easily be my wife. Sophie is mute, and she was in an auto accident when she was like 10 or 12 years old. She lost her voice because of some damage, but that's repairable in the future. She just doesn't have the money to do the operation until she gets her inheritance. I've seen her passport, and I also talked to a friend of hers she went to school with in the United Kingdom, and I used that to help validate her. I've already sent Sophie about $10,000. The last time I sent her money was $1,000, and that was 2 days ago. She was supposed to send me a total of $50,000. And because I knew I was going to be here in California, I said, well, send some of it to here instead, so I needed the address for the hotel, so I could then get delivery of that and then go cash the money order at Walmart or the post office. I have not seen any of it. This is April. We started to chat after she sent me an email. It was actually intended for somebody else, related to some packages that she didn't get delivered. But I said, well, wait a minute, are you single and unattached? And she says, yes, why would you ask? And she told me about herself, and we chatted for the rest of the day. April and I are engaged. I made a proposal to her, and that's on the table. Right now, she's not in the country.
He falls in love with everyone he meets. He's on fiance 43 would be highly likely.
She's in the country of Tonga, which is a South Pacific island below the equator. She said, I dropped hot coffee on my computer. She was going to take her computer to a technician, but at that point she didn't have the money to pay him to do it. Her company was willing to help, but they couldn't get her the money, so she convinced them to send the money to me to send on to her. They sent me $3,800, and I bought gift cards to send to her, because nowadays an awful lot of money transactions are done that way. A lot of them are scams, though. The gift cards I sent her were Nordstrom, I believe. I think in her particular case, I don't think she is scamming me. There's another lady in which I was also romantically interested in, dating back about 2 years. This lady is Jane. Her and her daughter are now being held in captivity. I would call it a compound in Levittown, New York. Her uncle is the one doing this. She refers to him as Uncle Danny. He told me his name is Gonzalez. That the house she's lived in is a fortress that has security guards with guns and attack dogs. She befriended a maid working in the house, and the maid let her use her phone. And then I said, can you call up Google Maps on your phone and then have it give you your coordinates? She tried to do that, but she says, this phone just won't do it. She says $200 will upgrade this phone. And from there, I can get on Google Maps and I can be out of here. So she's asked me for the $200. I said, I'm going to the FBI. The FBI agent took the report down, and I said, yeah, it could be a scam. I mean, I admitted to him that was a possibility, but I told him why I didn't think so. And he said he would pass it on. That's the last I heard.
For a man who's supposed to be smart, he is dumber than most.
You're concerned that he's being scammed.
Yes, I am very concerned.
And you're sensitive to this, but you've got a system where you weed out whether someone's being scammed or not.
Well, I do my best, but it's often failure.
Right. So what is it you're after? What is it you want to achieve in terms of relationship?
I want a woman to marry
Why?
because I don't like being alone.
Well, there's more to it than that, though, right? A candidate for you has to have certain qualities and
Sure.
characteristics, right?
Sure, to filter that down to somebody, that's correct. Well, yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think, look, I'm a guy. I mean, to be honest, in generally, you're looking for somebody you're attracted to first, but that's not the
course.
only thing. I'm looking for somebody who has Christian beliefs, is committed, and I'm looking for somebody who is funny, smart, intelligent, somebody I can have a rapport with, somewhat adventurous, sense of humor.
In a perfect world, you would like somebody that's young, attractive, interesting, funny, exotic, and rich.
Yes, if that's possible.
The finances are an important part because, as you say, you squandered all of your retirement for the two of you.
It is an important part.
And you found that out.
The night before he underwent a triple bypass.
Wow. And you did it by presenting a credit card that you knew should have a zero balance.
I went to buy a cushion for him to lie on when he got out of the hospital. And I found out that that credit card was maxed out at $9,000 something. And I couldn't even buy a $49 cushion. So I went to him and he confessed that he had maxed that out and that he had maxed out 3 other credit cards so that we were now $40,000 in credit card debt.
And that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Because you found out $40,000 was just the credit cards. In fact, he had been day trading and lost
All of it.
everything. So what do you say to yourself when you're that upset and angry and then he's going into surgery, presumably life-saving surgery?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I honestly didn't know whether I wanted him to survive or not.
So
It
if you
was
had
really
gotten that $49 cushion, you might have used it to smother him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then I wouldn't have gotten the life insurance, so.
that's true. Yeah. And you understood she was upset, right?
Well, yes, that would be normal. But the main part of the story I want to correct is I never used all of our savings on any other women. That never happens.
You have been sending money to women.
I have been, but I never used any of our savings. You see, any of that happened after
Where'd you get the money?
from my own income.
Well,
Social Security.
let's be clear here. You were not sending any of our savings to women that you were romantically interested in, but you started with this scam business while we were still married and while I was still with you, because you had the woman who wanted to go to nursing school, and you had the person that who posed as one of your former students. And we both tried to help those people. I began to realize it was a real scam setup.
That's correct.
And then once I left, you immediately began with the women. And the week after the divorce was final, he's asking me to help him figure out how to have a nest for his new fiance.
He asked you to help.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this needs a lot of correction. I don't know how much time you have here.
I don't
think I
remember
have
whether.
enough for you to correct all of that. But you said you had a way of filtering these out and kind of sorting out the scammers for the non-scammers.
Well, one way is when you ask for their image, you can search online to see if that image is showing up anywhere else using Google.
Right.
And if it shows up anywhere else under a different name, that's pretty much the end of the story right there as far as they're concerned.
All right. Well, Robert says he's talking to at least 5 different women in order to find the one. And I want him to explain the rationale behind his approach, and we'll talk about that when we come back. If she's a really good fashion designer, why is she homeless?
Her home was taken from her during the time her mother died.
How's she going to get access to it?
It involves a Nigerian company.
And later, she's homeless, but she's got a driver.
That's unclear to me, too, actually.
I found that there were a lot of questions you didn't quite ask.
But I'm asking them now.
Okay, keep going.
I'm looking for somebody who's reasonably athletic looking, somebody who's got womanly features, the whole package.
In my ex-husband Robert's mind, he's going to find a young Marilyn Monroe who's got all the money in the world, and she's going to want to marry him at 70 years old.
Like, I'm really charming, that's why, you know.
He's definitely delusional. I think Bob is about as arrogant as they come. He thinks everybody thinks he's wonderful.
What I want to see from Dr. Phil is if there's any red flags that tell me to not pursue that particular woman, to move on.
Well, Robert says he began dating again after his 40-year marriage to his ex-wife, Jeremy, ended 3 years ago. However, one woman in particular, he says, he's ready to marry as soon as possible. That's Sophie. Now, you're really wanting to get as sophisticated as you can at weeding out real versus phony, right?
Of course.
You really want to know.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And that's why you're asking, if I have input, you want to know what it is.
Well, I knew you had resources here. That's what.
Sure.
That's what my neighbor Jill. She's the one who really contacted the show about it.
Right, right. And let's take a look at Robert's current pool of women, the 5. You know, one is Sophie Preston. There's April Jean. Then there's Jane Hodges. She's also known as Jane Stamper. Then there's Rosalind Randy, and then Wendy Rodriguez. And these women are kind of from all over the globe, or at least currently are scattered kind of all over the globe, right?
Yeah, they're various places.
And you said one of them is in Modesto, or is from Modesto?
Well, not from in Modesto. She grew up in the United Kingdom.
But she's in Modesto now.
That's what she says. That's Sophie Young.
Okay, and you realize that's really close to here.
I do.
Did you ask her to come up and meet you here?
No, I'm talking about going to her. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I'd like it to happen.
Why would it not happen?
Because it has to be with her concurrence, and I haven't had enough conversation with her. That's a longer story, but the fact is that she's probably homeless right now and unable to get on the internet to communicate with me.
Okay. How have you been communicating with her? Has it been on the internet?
It's been on the internet like the others.
Have you talked to her on the phone?
I've never talked. She's mute.
This is the one that's mute.
She's mute.
Okay, but she has a friend that's not.
She has a childhood friend that I did communicate with, but only on chat, not on the phone.
She couldn't go to a library or internet cafe or somewhere and get on and type you a message, or?
Well, I don't know her situation exactly, mostly because I can't communicate with her about why she doesn't have communication. It's kind of a tricky thing there. And the reason why she's homeless is because she expected to get her inheritance, and she was kicked out of her home because her mother died and did not leave the home to her. The mother left the home to her stepbrother.
Yeah. Well, she was born in 94 in the United Kingdom, so she's 25.
Right.
Are you concerned about the age difference?
I didn't actually know she was 25.
Yeah.
I knew she was under 40, but I don't really look that closely at the exact age.
She's mute. She used to live with her mom in, is it Ripon, California?
That's correct.
And currently in a homeless shelter, most likely, is what you're thinking. She has a U.S. passport and a California driver's license. Her father, Michael Preston's Nigerian, but he's deceased.
Correct.
And the father was CEO of United Crude Oil.
That's what I'm told.
And her mother, Jessica Phillip, was an American and was deceased last year.
Correct.
And her mother died while on a flight, right?
That's
and
correct.
Her body is in a morgue in Frankfurt, Germany.
That's correct.
In fact, almost all of these women's significant family members are deceased.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. And she has an attorney, this Bernard T. William, that lives in Ripon, California, that manages the inheritance.
Yes, but he's a conflict, and there's a good chance that he's actually been ripping her off as her attorney and not keeping his responsibilities as an attorney.
Okay. And she's a fashion designer?
She is. She's a very good one.
Yeah. And she sells to Miskay, which is an African company?
That's right. Not entirely. I don't know everything about her past business practices, but in recent times, that's been a person who's been selling her dresses and so forth.
And y'all met on a dating website, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you've been talking via text messages for 2 years, and she's expecting $50,000 in inheritance from her father.
She's expecting she's expecting $5.5 million from her father.
Okay, but she was going to send you $50,000.
Yes, because I've been sending her money, and
You've sent her like $8,000, something like that.
probably a little more, but most of that didn't get to her. There's no way for me to know that's true, but that's what I was told.
Yeah. If she's a really good fashion designer, why is she homeless?
She's homeless because because her home was taken from her during the time her mother died. It was not in her name. So
and if her father's leaving her $5.5 million.
she doesn't have access to it.
How's she going to get access to it?
Well, through my help along the line, and it involves a process which it involves a Nigerian company. That tells you something right there, right?
Tells me a lot. What do you think about that?
It's pretty incredible.
It's kind of like a soap opera, really. Mom's dead, dad's dead,
It is.
brother got the house, she's mute.
Well, that's only the half of it, actually.
And later, you are a loudmouth bully.
Play the other side of that conversation.
You heard the other side of the
No, I did
conversation.
not.
You don't run this show, I run the show.
Well, that's apparent.
Robert says he is currently focused on 5 women. What do you think about that?
It's pretty incredible.
It's kind of like a soap opera, really.
Yeah.
Right? I
At least.
mean,
It is.
It's very busy. I mean, mom's dead, dad's dead,
It is.
brother got the house, she's mute.
And
I
I can
expect
tell-
any minute for her to get amnesia.
And I can tell you you said it's like a soap opera. Well, that's only the half of it, actually.
Yeah, well, there's more. You're right. And here are some text message exchanges between Robert and Sophie. November 15th, Robert, here's the hotel address. Write it down. And he says Sheraton Universal Hotel, 33 Universal Hollywood Drive, Universal City, California. You're giving her this so she can send the money, right?
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Sophie says, I did, baby.
She meant she had the address written down.
If you sent it to her in a text, it already was written down. Why would she have to write it down?
I'm not sure. Actually, I have to think about that a little bit.
Just little things kind of jump out at me. Okay, then you said, my money just came. I'm off to the store across the street.
Me.
Right.
That's right.
What money just came?
Social Security check.
Oh, not from her.
No.
This other money.
No.
Okay. You're off to the store across the street to do what?
To send her money in the form of gift cards, which is pretty common way now to transfer money from one to the other.
Okay, so as soon as you got your Social Security check, you're off across the street. I'm going to send you money.
That was pre-planned, you know.
Okay. And she says, okay, babe, are you there now? Like at the store? Meeting?
Yeah, or online. One of the
Okay.
two.
And then you said, I sent $500 worth, and now I'm told I need to send 500 more. What the hell are you people doing to me over and over again? So you're questioning, like, what are you doing here, right?
I am.
And she says, baby, I made payment of $750 the last time. I think that is why you remembered hacker took the fund on the card. I told you, babe, I'm so sorry.
I had new information about this.
So what is it?
It turned out that this money I just sent did not go to her or the right person. It turned out Bernard actually had the address. He took the money, and that was it.
Okay, her attorney robbed
She told me this in the last few days.
her attorney
Her
robbed
attorney, her so-called attorney.
her. Yeah, he robbed her.
Yes. And he'd been robbing her before, apparently, too.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. Okay, then you said, I did it, but heaven help for what I've done. What's that mean?
It just means that I'm basically robbing from myself and my future to do that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And Sophie says, babe, I'm waiting for driver
Right.
to pick me up. Babe, the driver is here.
And that's the last thing I heard from her until a couple of days ago, after I was out here with you.
She's homeless, but she's got a driver.
No. Well, I'm not sure. That's unclear to me too, actually. But there's so many aspects to this. You know, focusing on that wasn't
Could
my
be a cab.
Right. The focus on that wasn't my priority. More, I was worried about what happened to her.
You know,
Because that's the last thing I actually heard from her. I mean, yes, I questioned that, but I'm questioning a lot about this, and that was a minor potatoes compared to the bigger issues.
It could have just
you
been
know,
a cab.
through all the years, when you're doing the science stuff, when you're doing the money stuff, I found that there were a lot of questions you didn't quite ask.
But I'm asking them now.
Okay, keep going. You're doing good.
Thank you. Then Robert says, okay, just tell me if they've actually handed you cash at the bank and the debit card. That will go a long way to making me happy right now.
Yes, because
You just want to know if it got to you.
well, yeah, because once that happens, it means the whole thing is real. But until that happens, there's doubt, and in their case, considerable doubt as time goes on.
All right. Well, we did some sleuthing, and we found out some interesting things about Sophie Preston that I think Robert should know. That's after the break. This picture has been pasted on top of an existing passport.
I know that that's fraudulent. Another one was sent to me, though, that I don't think is fraudulent.
Don't tell me about a document you have that you didn't send me.
I've known Robert for about 3 years, and he was one of my neighbors. I have proven to him time and time again with multiple different women that these are scams.
Oh, Oh, Her first take is they're scammers until proven otherwise. I kind of take the opposite point of view. They're not scamming me until they're proven they're scammers.
His mental stability is all wrapped up in this, his identity, and he can't be wrong. If he's wrong, he fails.
It's exactly like someone taking their paycheck every week and going and playing the slot. They're sure they're going to get the money. They know this time is going to be the one, and then they can make up for the deficit that they have going on. I wrote the Dr. Phil show when he said, well, I'm actually going to food places during the day to eat where they serve a homeless lunch, and then at night I'm sleeping behind the church, so I'm safe. I feel that Dr. Phil is his last chance.
Okay, that was Jill, by the way. She's your friend, correct?
Correct.
And Jill, you're here. We'll talk to you in just a bit. And, you know, Jill points something out that I think is really interesting. And day trading is kind of gambling, right? It's very high risk.
It is.
Okay. And I kind of think you went from one high-risk situation to another high-risk situation is my point.
Okay.
You were looking for something there. You're looking for it in a different high-risk scenario now. But call it what you will. Okay, so Sophie Preston, we wanted to find out really who this mute beauty was. So we did some checking because you look at documents, as anyone should. You're quite right to do that. And you said you did look at her passport.
Yes.
And we did the same thing. Now, what we have here, this is a passport that is real. We know this one for sure, and I'm not saying this one isn't. I'm just saying we know this one sure because he works with us here, and I've known him for 20 years. So I know this person's for real, and so I know this is a legitimate passport. And so I put it up here so we can compare between the two. Now, one of the things that bothered me here is that there are two different names on this passport. Now, we had to block this out up here because we don't want to actually show the name, but this name starts with a J up here where they signed the passport, but the name on the passport down here that has been typed in is Sophie Preston. But the person that signed this passport is not Sophie Preston. It's up here, and it's a name that starts with a J. Then I looked at the picture, and we've blurred the picture out because I'll get to that in a minute. But you notice the picture is on top of the United States seal. In the actual passport, the seal is on top of the picture. And the reason that's a significant finding is because it tells you that this picture has been pasted on top of an existing passport because it's covering up the seal, whereas the seal encroaches on the picture in a real passport.
Can I comment on this? I have something to say. When you're ready. Okay, the passport you have, I know that that's fraudulent. But in the research that was done in sending documents to your people, I was sending a lot of stuff. So anything I found on my internet, on my computer, I was sending that out. I know that one was fraudulent. There was another one I'm not sure I ever found. In the speed of things, I sent that one out. I know that one's fraudulent. I found that out myself. And I know why it's fraudulent.
Tell me.
She's had 2 attorneys, okay? The first one, her first attorney wanted to get me convinced to move this along because he had money issues himself. When I confronted her and this guy, basically, she said, I've never seen that before. So I said, okay, well, she's probably lying to me, but I said, let's find out. When I confronted him with it, he basically said he made it up and it was fraudulent. So I did know that was fraudulent already. Another one was sent to me, though, that I don't think is fraudulent, and it's unfortunate I didn't get that one to you.
Oh, you just forgot to give us that one.
No, I didn't find it. Look,
come on.
Look, we're talking about in a few days putting hundreds of things together on my computer.
Look, I can't help you if you just keep shooting yourself in the foot. Don't tell me about a document you have that you didn't send me.
I didn't find it. I found that one. I forgot I had 2.
Yeah, well, remember it next time, okay? This is fraudulent. You see, this is clearly fraudulent. The lines down here are red.
It's clearly fraudulent.
Real ones are black.
I recognize
the name's in a different font.
I recognize
you get
it within 5 minutes.
Okay, let's move on to something that you did send us on purpose. Okay?
Well, I sent that to you on purpose, too, but I didn't look at it closely when I did it.
Oh, my goodness.
That's clearly fraudulent.
This is her driver's license.
Yeah, that's what he sent, too.
Okay, you know this is fraudulent,
Absolutely.
too. Okay, so she said you have a fraudulent passport and a fraudulent driver's license.
She didn't send it to me. Actually, this attorney did.
Show me a document that's not fraudulent.
Well, I don't have it on me. Your assistants were asking for information at a rapid-fire rate, so if mistakes were made, yeah, they were made.
Yeah, you were busy being belligerent. Closed captioning provided by Show me a document that's not fraudulent.
Well, I don't have it on me. Do you understand that your assistants were asking for information at a rapid-fire rate over a lot of people in a very short period of time?
Yeah,
that I was not prepared.
because they care a lot about what happens to you.
Yes, and I was not prepared at that moment to do it. I had to do it very quickly, and while I was doing it, more requests came in. I was doing that as fast as I could, so if mistakes were made, yeah, they were made.
Yeah, you were busy being belligerent is the reason you were having trouble getting all your documents
Is that a fact?
together. Yes, that is a fact.
Oh, okay.
That is a fact.
It's your show.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at whether you were being belligerent or not. Let's just take a look.
I'm not going to use their name, period. It doesn't matter who you give me to. You could give me the head of the corporation. I'm still not going to do it. So we have an impasse here. I'm going to put the onus back on you. You have my story, and my wife's story, you have Jill's story. Wait a minute, you're talking over me. Stop talking over me. If you want the answer, you're going to have to let me talk, okay? We don't have a show then, because I'm not going to say their actual first name. My bottom line is I'm not going to mention their name.
Oh, I just got a text from Robert. He says, I decided you can use all the first names now.
What?
I know.
What? Are you serious?
I basically took a look at each person and their situation. Decided that I could do it. Of all the ones that got mentioned today, I reviewed each one and I'm okay with it now. Okay, very good. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
That's an example of belligerent?
Is it an example of belligerence?
If a camera followed you around and took a snippet anywhere they wanted to, what would they say about you? Ask anybody in this room, would they like to have everything they say recorded and then take it out of context?
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I want to be right, and I want this show to be right. I don't want to be wrong, would you?
I decided to let it pass, you being rude and belligerent and abusive with my staff, but if you want to take that to task, we can, because you are a loudmouth bully.
Did you have the other side of that conversation? You know, in a phone conversation.
Yeah, I got the other side of that
there's two sides.
conversation. You want to bully them, bully me, Buster.
Play the other side of that conversation.
You heard the other side of the
No, I did
conversation.
not.
You don't run this show, I run the show.
Well, that's apparent.
Yeah,
And so that puts you in complete control.
it absolutely puts
Well,
me in
good.
complete control.
Good,
Now,
okay.
do you want the information or do you not?
I do.
Okay. Robert explained to our producers that his girlfriend, Sophie Preston, lived with her mother, Jessica Phillip, in Northern California until her mother recently died.
Not quite.
Sophie Preston is now in a homeless shelter. Okay, you want to split hairs? Okay, okay, I'll give you the floor. Go ahead. Go ahead. Split hairs. We'll play semantics.
Because I don't know what you're going to do with that. So Sophie Preston grew up in England, moved with her family to California. She had to go back to Nigeria related to her father's death and issues related to her inheritance. Her mother went with her because her mother wasn't doing that well and couldn't stay back without her. Then she had to leave, then she went to Nigeria, back to California, died on the way in Germany, and then Sophie went to her home. When her mother died, she found out she could not live there because it wasn't her home.
Okay, now let me finish, because you haven't got the damn clue where I'm going. We sent a staffer to the town where Sophie Preston says she and her attorney live.
I'm glad you were thorough.
We sent a staffer to the town where Sophie Preston says she and her attorney, who is managing her inheritance, Bernard T. Williams, live, because there's nothing better than boots on the ground. So let's see what this investigation uncovered.
Dr. Phil wanted to see if we could confirm some information given to him by Robert, who got it from Sophie. We are trying to see who lives in these two addresses. The show has been told by Robert that Sophie and Jessica, her mother, used to live in this address. Hey guys, can you guys tell me if you've seen this woman?
Never. I've never seen her.
She lives in this house right here, 3 houses down, where she used to live with her mom. This is her mom. She had a small dog.
I have never seen that woman here down the street. We're out all the time. I would honestly knock on her door. She's lived here for years.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you recognize this woman?
No.
Have you ever seen her?
No.
The show has been told by Robert that Bernard, Sophie's attorney, lives at this location. Do you know who this man is?
Never met him before once in my life.
Never heard the name Brandon T. Williams.
No.
Have you ever seen this woman? Does she look familiar? Have you seen her?
No, I have never met her before.
Dr. Phil, it is safe to say that the people that live in the addresses that Robert gave you do not know who Sophie, Jessica, or the attorney are.
Okay, we went up and down the street,
Good.
and a lot of the people said, no, I would remember this girl.
Probably.
I would remember her. We have people that lived in the street for like 30 years.
I don't doubt your research.
And said, neither one of them ever existed in that city, on that street. Talked to people that have lived there their entire lives. Neither one of them have ever been there.
I'm glad you were thorough.
So that's a lie.
Yes,
They never lived there.
it seems so.
So the summary findings that we have regarding Sophie Preston are that we also check to see if there is a Sophie Preston in California or the United States with the date of birth that she is given. The answer is no. So we wanted to know, there's United Crude Oil in Nigeria or the UK. And we located one United Crude Oil in Wilton, Connecticut. It's been out of business since the early 2000s, has no connection with anybody associated with Sophie Preston then or later. There is no Sophie Preston that sells to Miss K Boutique in Nigeria. There are 3 Miss K locations in Nigeria. We talked to all of them, and no one by this name has ever done any business with any of those locations.
Well, the damning part is going to her address. That's the part. The name of this company actually isn't accurate, but I assume they would know because it's close enough. It was actually Mrs. K, in that boutique that I know. Anyway, the other part is United Crude Oil Yeah, that's pretty damning. The other part of it is the date of birth business. I was told that if you were born in the UK, that might not show up in the usual databases, but there's enough there to draw the conclusion that you drew.
For 40 years. For 40 years.
Well, I've been married 43 years, and my wife says some of them feel like dog years too. So I understand there. Robert is still talking to 4 other women: April Jean, Jane Hodges among them. Robert may be thrilled to know what we found out about her next.
The Dr. Phil show has been told by Robert that April Jean lived in this house before she had to leave for a freelance architecture job in Tonga.
Closed captioning provided by... Well, we're out of time today, but there's so much more to this mystery that we have just started to unravel. Believe me, you're going to want to stay tuned because we found April Jean, and boy, does she have a lot to say. I'd like to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I do read your comments and questions. Now, Sinead Brown tweeted out to me to say, the classification of your TV show has caused a rift in a 3-year friendship. Please confirm if your TV show is a reality show or a talk show. Now, I'm open to coming on to the show to discuss this. Kind regards, Sarah and Sinead. Now, okay, it's actually not a show. If you look, this is called Dr. Phil. It's not called the Dr. Phil Show. It's just called Dr. Phil. And that's by design. It's not a Dr. Phil show, it's just Dr. Phil. So that's your answer. I don't know if that's going to solve your problem. That's all for today. We'll see you next time.